Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2023 Chevy Silverado 1500, we're going to be showing you how to install the B&W custom fit underbed hitch. But before we get into that, let's just take a minute, we'll check this out and make sure it's going to work for you. If you're familiar with the towing world at all, chances are pretty good you've probably heard of the B&W name, and there's a reason for it. They make awesome stuff. I'm a big fan of them. And I find myself time and time again recommending these B&W parts to a lot of my friends and family. You just can't go wrong, right? And this is no exception. You know, the fit is awesome, it looks great, and you get, there's a couple things that really separates B&W from a lot of the other types of hitches. One of them, the quality construction, the craftsmanship. Everything's really well made, so it fits good and works like you'd expect it to. But with this particular one, you can actually store the goose ball inside of the hitch whenever you're not using it. So you're able just to flip this around, put it in there, and it's not rolling around the back seat, or you got to keep track of it, whatever the case may be. It's always with it, right? And you also get full bed access too. This hardly takes up any space. You kind of get 2 for 1, honestly, with something like this, because it's going to have your goose ball there for a gooseneck trailer, but you can also use what's called a B&W companion, which is a 5th wheel hitch that'll drop in here and utilize this opening and then allow you to hook up a 5th wheel type trailer. So maybe you got a gooseneck for now. If you end up getting another trailer or whatever the case may be, it's pretty easy to make everything happen. Or what a lot of people do is if they have a 5th wheel trailer already, and a lot of those 5th wheel type hitch kits are going to have rails, right? So the rails that sit in the bed of the truck, and they're visible, they take up some room. A lot of people ain't looking for that, right? So you can always get the underbed hitch like we have, use a companion, and tow your 5th wheel. This hitch is going to be compatible with all the different bed lengths, from the 8-foot long beds to the 5 3/4 that we have here today, and everything in between. Short beds are more and more popular nowadays, at least in my area here, over long beds. That's what I see out on the road. With a short bed, something you need to think about when pulling, whether it be a gooseneck trailer or 5th wheel, is clearance, cab clearance, right? So with these real short beds, we're not too far away from the front of our truck, especially how this is set up. We got this tonneau cover that stays upright, right? So we lose a little bit of space. Well, some of the trailers that have an overhang on them, if you're making real tight turns, you can potentially collide the front of your trailer into your cab corner, and that's something you definitely don't want to have to deal with. And so my advice would be, if you think that's going to be an issue with your short bed, and if it's a gooseneck trailer, B&W has an offset ball that drops in here and sets the ball attachment point a little bit further back, so that could buy you some more clearance there. And for those of you that plan on using the companion, the 5th wheel hitch that will drop in here, if you have that short bed, I would definitely recommend getting the sliding version of that. That way, when you go to make those turns and stuff, you can slide the attachment point back and give you more than enough room. For those of you with a long bed, that's generally not an issue, unless you have a really wonky trailer set up in the front or something like that. For those of you with the long beds, this will work perfectly fine, no issues there at all. You can more than likely get away with a fixed style 5th wheel companion if that's what you're looking to do. The safety chain openings here in the bed, they're spring loaded, and they're pretty large, large enough for pretty much any size hook that your trailer might have on it. And being that they're spring loaded, when you're not using them, they sit flat on the bed, so they don't take up as much space. And my thought would be too, since there's a little tension on them, probably a little less noisy, from rattling and stuff like that. With that said, the ball, the diameter is going to be 2 5/16. Super common. That's definitely the standard. And the hitch is going to have a 30,000 pound maximum gross trailer weight rating. Now, with that said, always a good idea, look in your truck's owner's manual and see how much weight it can safely tow, and you never want to exceed that. As far as operating the hitch, it's super straightforward. You know, you'll just have a handle here, and when it's in this position, it's locked, meaning you know, your accessory is not going to be able to be removed from the hitch. And then whenever you're ready to remove it, you just pull out, gently rotate it down a little bit, it locks it in there, super smooth. You know, you don't have to search for it. And believe it or not, that's not always the case with a lot of these types of hitches. So real easy to figure out, and the handle is going to connect to the hitch, you know, that's actually underneath of our truck. So why don't we go under there and check it out and see how it looks. This is how the hitch is going to look. Classic B&W, everything fits great. Doesn't really interfere with a whole lot of anything. Can't really ask for too much more as far as that goes. And we do get a lot of people asking about suspension enhancements, right? Are they going to be compatible with this type of hitch? And it's definitely understandable, because if you're using something like this, you got a big trailer that you're pulling around. I do know that there's a set of air springs that are compatible with the in-bed hitch. Airlift makes some. I'm sure there's others out there. You know, it's hard to speak for every single enhancement if it'll work or not. When you're looking at our web page, it's always a good idea to kind of look at the installation notes and some of the tech tips. A lot of times that information will be in there. As far as some of the other enhancements go, right, like say a Timbren or Sumo spring, for example, they pretty much just replace your jounce bumpers. So really no reason at all that style shouldn't work, because it's not going to be in the way of the hitch at all. Or even some of the other ones that you add, you know, put on top of your leaf springs, you should be just fine to use any of those types of upgrades. Something I do always like to recommend, at least, you know, for you to think about, is in-bed wiring. And our neighbor here today decided to go with it. That way, you know, you can have a 7-way in the bed. You don't have to take your wiring from your trailer and drape it over your tailgate, run it down to your bumper connector. You know, we're using a Hopkins kit, just tease right into the factory connector, and you can still use both. So, you know, if you got a bumper pull trailer as well, still utilize that. Have this one up here for your, you know, your gooseneck or your fifth wheel type trailer. Other than that, at the end of the day, you know, a hitch you really can't go wrong with. B&W is my favorite, hands down. The quality of them, the fitment, you know, it just makes everything go together much more easy. Which kind of brings me to my next point. When it comes to the installation, you know, it's not bad for what it is. With this type of install, it's definitely a little time consuming. There's some labor involved, you know, but with the B&W, they make it about as straightforward as possible. It really wasn't too bad. I'd say if you're comfortable doing this type of thing, probably half a day, something like that, if I had to put a time on it. But there's a couple things that I ran into, which I'll show you what I did, and hopefully that can speed things up for you a little bit. If this is something you don't want to mess with or have the time and place to work on it, I definitely understand that. You can always use our dealer locator network, and hopefully that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can set you up with something like this. But if you're doing it yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be working underneath the back of our Silverado, and I temporarily lowered and removed our spare tire just to get it out of the way. A lot more room to work. And with that gone, we can now remove this heat shield here. The shield's held in place with 6 13mm head bolts, so we have 3 on each side. And from this point on, whatever we do to one side of our truck, we're also going to do to the other side. So we set up the same. Go ahead and get all these removed. Go ahead, lower this down and get it out of our way for now. We are going to lower our exhaust some. It just makes it so much easier, gives us a lot more room. So on each side of the truck, we're gonna have a hanger here at the back, and we can pull out this 15mm head bolt. We have this little cross section of exhaust here, and figured we get it out of our way. There's only 2 nuts holding it on. So this one here and one just like it on the front side. It's a 13mm. should really kind of work that off and slide this out of her way. We need to remove a part of this underbed heat shield here where our hitch is going to set. And so along this hat channel, we're going to make a cut all the way across right here. I'm just going to use a multi-tool. You can use 10 snips, kind of whatever you got. Should work out. If you continue to follow the heat shield all the way towards the front, you'll see where it ends. And there's going to be 2 T25 Torx bit screws. And you're going to want to pull these out. That way we can completely remove that portion of the heat shield. Once you get both of those out, you can take this, get it out from under our vehicle. Moving over to the driver's side frame rail, we're going to have this bracket here that's helping to hold up some of our brake lines. And we'll remove it. There's 2 13mm head bolts. Let's kind of let this hang. That way we have a little more room to work when we go to put our hitch up. There's another bracket in the center of the truck, kind of right above our exhaust. And there's just some wiring connectors and stuff clipped to it. We need to do the same thing with this one. But with this one, there's going to be 2 10mm head nuts securing it. So you want to go ahead and get those removed. So with this too, once you remove those nuts, you can push it over and let it drop down like that. Over on the passenger side frame rail, we have this wiring that runs along through here. And there's just a couple of clips kind of holding it in place. So I'm going to take a trim tool. You can use a flathead screwdriver as well. And just kind of pry underneath of them to pop them free. That way it's not in our way when we put our hitch up. Moving to our wheel wells now. If your truck has the liners in them, we're going to have to remove them. And there's a couple different types of fasteners. You have 2 10mm head plastic nuts. So one of them's here. And then if you work your way up to the middle, top portion, there's this guy. And with those, you can just unscrew by hand. And then continuing forward, that's where we have another 10mm nut. And then we can switch out to a T15 and just kind of all throughout our wheel well liner, there's T15 Torx bit screws. So we'll work our way all the way around until we get them all pulled out. Once you get all those out, you can take the liner, kind of just start to peel it away from our vehicle. And we'll set it off to the side here. Up in the bed of the truck now, we can create the hole for our gooseneck. And pay attention if you have a short bed or a long bed, because the measurements can change. And you want to make sure to measure from the actual bed, not the tailgate. And if you happen to have a spray and bed liner like we do, you know, you can take into account the thickness of that as well. And So I got a mark there. I measured from side to side, split the difference. That way we can find the center of it. And I'm going to use a hole saw here. Now that I got the hole drilled, I came back with a file and some sandpaper and kind of just cleaned up some of the rough edges. And then I took a paint stick and painted where the bare metal was exposed to help keep it protected against rust and give it a layer of protection. You can use spray paint, but something I've noticed in the past, even let's say if you use clear and you spray it on there, you get a little overspray on these bed liners, you can still notice it. So using something like this will just kind of give you a cleaner finished product. You can take our front cross member now. How this is going to work, the second hole in from the end, you want to take a bolt, put it through like that, and they give you a little O-ring just so the bolt don't fall out. Because with this one, it's tricky to get to with some of the components underneath the truck. We're going to take this and set on top of our frame rail here, like that. And just slide it all the way over so it rests on the other frame rail. Then we can get it to clear everything, and trying to do is kind of roll this to where it'll be vertical. About like that. And if you're having a hard time getting it to stay up like that, not really a huge deal. Once we go underneath the truck and position a few more things, we can always, get a better look at it and keep it in that upright position. Back up in the bed of the truck, I'm going to do a little prep work, and this is just a little apparatus that you can put together when we go to put that center section of the hitch up. It'll make it a lot easier. So a couple big blocks of wood, another board going across here, and I just have a strap. And how this will work is the hooks will grab onto the locking pin in the hitch, right? And then you're able to cinch and tighten up the strap, and that'll kind of pull everything into position and keep it where it needs to be. We can grab our center section, and you'll notice the hole is offset to one side. All right, you want the hole to be the offset towards the back of the truck. Trying to make sure the hooks go through our opening there. And it's definitely a tight fit. So we'll get it loose. Make sure you're not setting on, the plastic fuel lines or anything. But what I'm going to do now, we go up carefully into the bed. We should be able to pull on our strap to kind of take all the slack out and draw this up into place better. At least it'll get it close, make it manageable. Ideally, you have a buddy give you a hand with this, and while you're putting it in, from underneath, someone up here can latch onto it and be able to pull it up. But if you're working by yourself, this is one way you can do this. Back on our driver's side wheel well, we can take the rear cross member, and again, these holes are offset, so you want to make sure that the hole's going to be closer to the top. So for example, this part would be touching the bottom of our truck bed, and all these holes are threaded. And from past experience, sometimes what can happen is when they powder coat all this stuff, sometimes it can get in the threads and make it kind of tricky to get the bolts started, whenever you're underneath the truck. So my advice, what I did, was take one of the bolts that go in it and just run them through, to make sure that they go in smoothly. And it'll be a lot easier if you get one hung up, to make sure it's clean here as opposed to underneath the truck. So with that said, just like the front, we're going to take this cross member and slide it all the way over to the other side of our truck. We got our front and rear cross members roughly in place, and I took the front one, slid it back to the center section, and we'll start on this hardware first. You're just gonna have a bolt through like that, and put on a flat washer, a split lock washer, and a hex nut. Just get it on there, a few threads for now. I'll go ahead and do the same thing for, we have 3 more remaining. So once you get all the hardware in for the front cross member, you can do the back cross member, and you know, it's tricky to see from where we're at here, but you can, you know, feel for the holes in the center section and line them up with the rear cross member. And with those, you're just gonna have a bolt, put on a split lock washer and a flat washer, and get all of those started hand tight as well. I'm going to come to your wheel wells now, and with the cross members all loosely bolted in place, you want to make sure that in the truck bed you pull up on the center section so it's nice and tight against the bottom of the bed. All right, and once you do that, if you notice that these still have a bunch of play in them as far as up and down, it gives you these spacers here, and you'll want to use those, kind of fill that void. Real simple. You just slide into place just like that. And our wheel wells, you'll see in the frame that there's this oval shaped hole. All right, we're going to use that as one of our attachment points. So you can take this spacer block, the carriage bolt, carriage bolt through like that, and then they give you a couple of fish wires. Take one of them and thread the carriage bolt onto it, and then put the carriage bolt into the frame first, followed by the spacer block. You can pull it through, and then you'll have this spacer block. Put the pull wire through it. It's going to go over there and kind of fill that hole, but almost push perfectly into position like that. And what you want to do, you want to have a flathead screwdriver handy. Just apply some pressure to this bolt to keep it steady. That way you can get rid of the pull wire. They give you this retainer here, which will thread on there. Get it snug here. What I like to do is just come back with that screwdriver, give it another turn or two to make sure it's completely tight. You want to grab your side plate now, and these are side specific, so make sure to check your instructions, make sure you got the right one. That's just going to set in place like this on that bolt that we just put through the frame. Take a flat washer, split lock washer, and a nut, get it hand tight. And then we'll go ahead and put these in as well. So for the one in the front here, just take a bolt, pass that through. Then you're just going to do a split lock washer and a hex nut. And then for there, we'll just have a bolt and a split lock washer. Get this hand tight. From underneath the truck, you can take the U-bolt that they give you, Make sure that you're going to clear your brake lines, you know, so put it in behind them on the passenger side. Make sure you don't smash the wiring or anything. But this is going to line up with our holes in the side plate there. Where our U-bolt comes through, both ends, I already got this end going here, but both ends are going to receive a flat washer, split lock washer, and a hex nut. You want to make sure that the hitch, you know, is going to be square in the truck. So one way you can do it, and with this kind of tight up to each other, make sure that this distance between your rear cross member and the hat channel is the same on each side. So about like that is where we're at on our truck. So that looks good. That's a pretty good indication. And then probably be a good time as well at this point to get up in the bed of the truck. Make sure that the center section is where you want it and square and everything like that. Because with everything loose now, if you need to, you know, tweak it or make a minor adjustment, you can do that before we tighten everything down. We're going to snug all the hardware down now, and there's a particular order that you want to do this in. The first being the 8 pieces of hardware attaching the center section to our rear and front cross member. So I have a 3/4 inch socket and wrench. We'll get all these snug down. Not a bad idea to double check, make sure everything stayed square, and it's a good idea to continue to kind of do that as we tighten everything down. But we want to snug down now this hardware that's attaching the side plates to the cross members. So it's a 3/4 inch socket. And then you want to make sure to do the other side too, which I already did. And then you can come back and hit this bolt here, that carriage bolt that we put through the frame. I'm gonna run over to the other side of her truck and get that one real quick too. Last but not least, you want to do the U-bolt. And when you tighten down U-bolts, you want to try to run them down evenly. You know, so turn this for a few seconds and this one back and forth. Seems like kind of no matter what you do, maybe just how the frame is, that the top one will usually have more thread showing than the bottom, but you know, as long as it's somewhat even, it should be in good shape. Now you want to come back with a torque wrench, tighten down all the hardware in that same sequence that we just used. And we'll tighten these down to the amount specified in the instructions. With everything torqued, we can get our handle installed. So with this end will connect to this mechanism up here. So I'm going to go from the outside, get it up and over our frame, into the handle. We'll line that up. Take the small carriage bolt, pass that through, and on the back side of it, you'll have this flange nut. So we have that going. We'll come back with a 1/2 inch size socket and tighten it down. You can get the holes drilled out for safety chain openings now. And so on the bottom of the hitch, I have a total of 4 holes there, and we'll use those as guides. We'll drill from the bottom up and get all 4 of them done. With the holes drilled out, I came back and you know, put some paint on that bare metal just like we did on this opening. And then you're going to have these safety chain openings here. Just drop them straight down through. Bottom of a truck where the bolts drop down, you can take a spring, put that over it, and then you're gonna have a nut. Get that started, and this will be the same hardware combo for all 4 ends. Let's take a 3/4 inch socket, and we're just gonna snug this down until the nut is flush with the bottom of the bolt. So about like that. Resecure some of those components that we loosened up. You know, our bracketry on the side and up here. I put the exhaust pipe back. It all goes back up the opposite way that we removed it. I'm gonna hold off on our big spare tire heat shield and actually putting the spare tire up for the time being, because we are gonna be doing in-bed wiring, which I'll have to, you know, make some connections down here. So I don't want that stuff in my way when I'm doing that, but it will go right back up the same way, of course, which leaves us with just the wheel well liners now. We got our liners put back in place, and the only thing I had to do different was on the driver's side. Just cut out a small opening here to allow us to get access to our release handle there. And I just used a razor blade. Cuts pretty easy. It's almost like thick cardboard, so you know, you can take out as much or as little as you want. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the B&W custom fit underbed hitch on our 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 1500.